she would probably be about 30 minutes late. So who are we missing? Trustee Warren. Well, whatever. I would hope they would be here. Maybe they'll come in a few minutes. Sarah, has this meeting been noticed properly?
The meeting has been posted and noticed according to law.
Okay. I actually didn't pull up my agenda. Let me do that. Well, what are we starting with? We are starting with library, right?
Yep, I believe so.
Yeah, library trustee compensation. Okay. Did anybody have any questions about the library budget?
Can I ask like a more housekeeping kind of question? Sorry, it's not for you, Rachel.
Oh, that's good.
On the agenda, is there any way to do like a hyperlink, just especially now that no one's really printing agendas, that you could have a hyperlink that's takes you like down? So, because I'm scrolling like back and forth from, agenda to the packet. So I don't know if in the future we could. Or
that's a great idea. Or even page numbers, right? Like seeing a page number would be like even more like helpful as well. So I agree with that.
I mean, we used to be able, when you open it in Dropbox, there was like an index and you could use the index to move around. I don't use Dropbox anymore, but yeah, there used to be an index that was helpful.
Sorry to digress.
I guess that's something we can look at.
I just want to make sure that we note that.
I do appreciate that we have that we've separated the budget for library out to general operations and enhanced operations / capital. I guess I had a question. There was something in here about planning or about your plan, like 40,000. Now I can't find it.
We do have, I wonder if you're referring to the renovation master plan.
Yeah.
That is in our enhanced operational budget. So we actually have just started. That's a bit of an update for you. We have started a renovation master plan process that is going to think about sustainability efforts. Our building is getting close to 20 years old. Looking at some facelifts for the space. We will be using the enhanced operational budget to fund that. So that is funding the plan itself this year. We are contracted with HGA's local office to help us with that. We hope to have that plan in hand by January or February. And then we would look at implementing some of those recommendations in 2021 and 2022, which would be our 20-year anniversary of the library and village center.
And are you, you said sort of facelift things, or are you thinking about really reordering the space inside the library?
I think we are trying to be open-minded. We went in with my practical set of eyes. If you recall, some of you who were here a few years ago, Alex and I both came to you. Alex Handelsman is our library board president, and that's why he's here today. We came to you asking for money to replace our carpet. We knew in the 20-year mark, we needed to replace the carpet, and we knew it was going to be about $100,000. And so that's what really kicked off this process. So it started with very practical ideas in mind, realizing that we can really open up and think about a variety of possibilities. So keeping an open mind now, and we're going to start narrowing it down, and we'll see a list of recommendations.
Okay, I just had one other question about, since things are now separated into two different budgets, if there's fund balance left over in the, okay, so they each have a separate fund balance, so they're separated. So if you don't spend something from the enhanced, it doesn't just fall to the bottom line, it stays in that fund, correct? Okay.
Correct.
And that's
Okay.
one of the portions of the agreement with Greater Milwaukee Foundation, that when we make a grant request, it's supposed to be used for a dedicated purpose. And then if we have an underage where we don't use as much, that money then goes back into the bucket, for lack of a better term, that it was drawn from.
Okay, that's, yeah, I wanted to make sure that the funds didn't get commingled at the end. Okay, that's, I did want to ask you too, how is in person? I have not been, my husband went to the library. I have not actually been to the library because I'm not really going places, but how has in-person visits been? Have they been picking up?
Our number of visits are picking up, but are still significantly lower than this time last year. What is spiking is our actual circulation of physical materials. By midway through the summer, we were checking out the same amount that we were last summer, which surprised us all. Now we just crunched our September numbers, and our checkout of physical items is up 12%. And that includes all the quarantining and the safety protocols. So people need their library in a real traditional sense. Books are flying off the shelf. Our visits, like I said, are limited, but the people that we are seeing are conforming to the mask policy, using our Wi-Fi, using computer access. Often the people who are using us are the ones who don't have reliable access elsewhere in their life. So without the Early Learning Center open, we're seeing far fewer families, as you can imagine. That's been hard, but Heidi's outdoor story times on the lawn are an absolute hit. So there's some distancing and some programming going on.
And I'll also say, even when my wife was checking out books for my daughter, Miss Susan offered Art Cart, which is traditionally an in-person activity that would transition to sort of remote activity. So just want to take a moment to recognize how great and proud our library staff has been, both being resilient and sort of transitioning to these remote services. And, you know, one patron remarked when learning that the library was back open, saying it's a game changer for our household.
Okay, Trustee Ursink, you had a question?
Yeah, you know, I think it's just a bigger question, just so I can get familiar with the budget. Can you talk a little bit how the Greater Milwaukee Foundation works in conjunction with Shorewood Library?
Sure, I'm going to try to be succinct. We received, and much of this is reflected on our webpage, and I'm sorry that we haven't had a chance to get together. Arthur, I know we were playing a little tag with trying to get a tour together and connect. So in August of 2019, we were the recipient of a really generous request from Elaine and Larry Lang. And the library board worked with the Greater Milwaukee Foundation to manage that gift. In working with the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, we essentially have 3 separate funds that are in an agency endowment there, and each of those funds have a unique goal for the fund. One is going to grow until roughly the year 2040. That fund would be a seed for a major capital campaign for a new library building when that time comes, or major facility work. So that is not available to us at this time. The 2 other funds do have a spendable amount, or the interest that we can use from those. One is the Permanent Endowment Fund. That is really to enhance library services that are already in place. This is how, you know, the library is not going to come to you asking for replacements for computers or furniture or equipment. The Permanent Endowment is going to take care of that, as well as enhancing our collections, digital and print, and programs. And you'll see that reflected in the details of the enhanced budget. And then the final fund is the Library Board Directed Reserve Fund. That is really in place to look at one-time, large-scale special initiatives, sustainability efforts, partnerships for facility upgrades. The renovation master plan will be using the library board directed fund, both in the planning phase now, as well as when we do implement some of those recommendations. So the library board took a really long view of this gift to make sure that the Lang's intent to enhance the library for a long time would be in place.
That's fantastic. Wow, that's really, that's incredible to hear. So my other question is, have you guys considered solar panels for the roof as a part of the renovation master plan?
We have. It's funny, that came up in just our last planning meeting, talking about solar panels on the roof. I know, was it last year or the year before? I believe all of the village buildings have been looked at. There was a recommendation as part of the planning process. Big thank you to Leanne for being a part of the RFP process. We did get a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing review as part of our process. And this is just casually, we haven't received the report yet, but they said that our shingles on the roof definitely need to be replaced in 4 to 5 years on Village Center. And that's a prime time to make the transition to solar. So that was just the beginning of the conversation, but we are thinking about sustainability efforts that will reduce our operational expenses in the building and serve as a good role model for the community.
That's great. I appreciate that. Thank you. And then I look forward to that tour and getting together to chat more when we can do that. So thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
So, anybody else have questions for the library? No? All righty. Well, you got off easy again this year.
Thank you, David. Thank you all for your time. We really appreciate you and the hard work that you do for us.
Well, we appreciate you too. All righty. Thank you, guys. I got a message from President Rozek that she's almost at the meeting, and I know trustee compensation is an issue that she would like to be involved in. So, oh, no, that's not her. So why don't we skip that and go to capital budget? Didn't we start this? There was just some at the end that we didn't get to. Is that correct?
Yeah, from what I understand, it was just that last page.
Yeah, that's what I recall too. Okay, I recall, yeah, we just had not talked about page 110. So let me see. Okay, one question I had. South Oakland Avenue Mill and Overlay. I did go back and look at when we talked about using the TIF to fund not Full Street, but curb to curb replacement on North Oakland. And I did look back, and the motion was to do a mill and overlay on South Oakland. That is $300,000, and I believe South Oakland would be coming, what, in 2028? Does anybody know when South Oakland is?
This is Leanne. I think we can safely say it would not be earlier than 2026. But with the recent changes we've had in some of the larger projects, we haven't actually put a proposed schedule in front of you that includes that. But my estimation that it would be that it would occur between 2026 and 2028.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring up the question of, do we want to spend $300,000 for an improvement that's only there, 5 to 7 years? I mean, it is 5 to 7 years and it's in bad shape, but I just want to throw that out there. I don't know what other people think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would leave that to Leanne. What do you think, Leanne? Do you think it's worth pushing off, or do you think it's critical that we do this now?
I believe in a perfect world, we'd be looking at doing this relatively quickly. However, we simply don't have the work capacity with the other large projects that are lined up between now and 2025/2026. So I think the board may wish to have a conversation, and I'm not sure that tonight is that night, about whether, Trustee Amenta's exact question, would it be preferable to schedule a full reconstruction of Oakland in about that same time frame, or use the mill and overlay to push that full construction back a number of years? I don't have a great recommendation for you. I think it's really, it becomes a board preference item. We clearly are in the spot where it needs some attention.
Well, yeah, I wasn't suggesting that we move up the reconstruction at all. I was just saying we just live with it the way it is until we get to reconstruction, and not, because it's kind of like what we did with Lake, because we did that, what, in 2019? And
2018.
2018. And
Yeah.
now we're looking at 2025 that will have the reconstruction. So
2025 would be Lake Drive reconstruction.
Lake, right. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. So I mean,
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah. So I guess it's just a question of like, and Lake was bad, Lake was bad. So I guess it's just a, question of, because we are kind of, I mean, if it's, and this would be 2021, and let's say, so this would be maybe only 5 years. So we'd be paying, for a temporary fix for 5 years, as opposed to just kind of living with it and saving that money, using it for something else. So I'm kind of undecided myself. I just wanted to put it out there for discussion.
If I could, the reality of it is that if we do not do something next year, we will we will have to do some maintenance on it in the next 5 to 6 years. And really, as we've explained before, it's a concrete street. The only real maintenance we could do, aside from the mill and overlay, would be to replace large panels. And then we're, then you're getting into not insignificant sums of money. So at this point, my recommendation would be that you do, in fact, do this in 2021. It may be 5 years, it may be longer, but it does at least provide you time to have those discussions, re-rank priorities, look at how some of the other capital projects are being completed and falling. I think it just puts you in a better position.
Okay, I have Trustee Carpenter and Trustee Warren wanted to make comments. So, and Ursink. Okay, go ahead, Jessica.
Leanne, do you think that if we, that section cannot wait till 2026 was why
It definitely cannot.
Okay.
We will be required to do, as I said, we will have to address the issues. It cannot go with nothing until that point in time.
Okay. And then do you think that this is the most cost-effective sort of temporary solution?
I'm not sure I would necessarily label it as the most cost effective. I think given the parameters and some of the other things that we're working on and the time that we have available, I think it is the best option available to us.
Is there a less expensive option? I mean, I definitely understand your bandwidth concerns.
No,
like,
there really is not. No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Warren.
Thank you. Not to be redundant, but I do agree with Trustee Amenta. It'd be nice, coming into this conversation a little bit on the fence. It'd be nice to push it off if we could. But then I go back to, our conversations that have gone on throughout the past year and a half. And, driving down this section of the street, walking down it, my gut feeling is that we probably need to do it. Again, I do understand it's a temporary fix for 5 years, but this is not, it does not strike me as for my opinion, it does not strike me as a section of the street that we're going to have the option of not doing anything on. And I think repairs will add up. So my gut feeling is to go ahead and do it, though I do see the points that are being made about delaying if we could, but I think ultimately we're going to have at a place where we're going to have to do this. So just my thoughts.
Okay, Trustee Ursink, you had a comment?
Yeah. I wonder if I could, this might not be the time. I wonder if we're going to address a couple other things in this section here, large construction projects. So maybe if anybody else has any more, thoughts about this project, I can wait till we get to kind of a more general kind of discussion about the other
Well,
large construction.
Yeah,
projects.
I think it's just a question of, do we want to put this on the list or not? Do you, Jessica? I don't know.
I mean, just because something goes on the list doesn't necessarily mean that it is not moving forward. I think sometimes it's nice to have, I don't want to put everything on the list, but like it is sort of nice to have a fair number of items that, people feel a little bit wishy-washy about. So that way we can sort of look at it collectively and be like, these are all the things that we need to weigh together. I mean, I'm leaning towards we need to do it, but I think it might be nice just to, excuse me, have it on the list just so we can collectively see, everything all in one place. Maybe we still end up in the same place and move forward with it, but.
Yeah. Okay, let's put that on the list. Okay, Trustee Ursink, you had another question?
Yeah, maybe, can we go back to the alley program? So we had, did we put in that one alley? It was a fairly large alley that's by south of, was it just north of Capitol, just south of Capitol by Downer? There was a fairly large alley. Did we put that back into the plan, or did we put all alleys into this alley program for 2021? So I remember at one point it was proposed that we leave a couple of the alleys out this year. And there
All
are
of them are
potential alleys.
All of them are being designed.
Okay.
At the point that we have the bids come back, then the board will make a determination. Sorry about that. The board will make a determination as to, which or what alleys they would fund.
Okay. Yeah, because I just remember at one point we having this conversation and we all decided, to potentially put all of the alleys in it instead of, I think Mark proposed like do these alleys now and do these alleys in the future. And I feel like we put them all on the plate. So I think there could probably be some cost savings there. I don't know if it's worth putting on the list until we have that, those bids back.
Trustee Carpenter. You got to unmute.
I got to unmute myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would like to put on the list are the trash receptacles, beach trash receptacles, and Atwater Park fixtures. Are the fixtures not trash receptacles? Are they different?
I think they're different, aren't they?
So the beach are for the beach level. Atwater is for the park level.
Okay.
Um,
So they're trash cans at the beach level and then trash cans.
Yeah, the park level is refuse and recycling.
Okay.
The beach level is refuse only.
Yeah, I'd like to add that.
Both of those?
Yeah, collectively it's 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trustee Warren?
Yeah, I think that at this point, sorry, I'm getting a call on my other line. I think that I also like to add River Club windows to the list. I mean, again, at this point, we're not making decisions as to whether they're going to go forward or not, but I think it makes sense to given some of our budgetary challenges, to put it on the list at this point. So I'd like to add that as well.
Okay, I had a question about Hubbard Park parking lot. How many spots are in that lot? I'm just curious about what the cost is per spot and how that compares to, do you know how many spots there are in there?
I can count them quickly, I think.
Was it like about 40 or something? Yeah. Oh, that's not too bad. That's 6,250. I just think we should, I think a parking ramp is like 10 to 12,000 per spot. So I just want to be sure that we're not paying a very high amount per spot.
There are about 40.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so that's 6,250 per spot. So, okay.
Trustee
How-
Menta,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just am wondering, did you guys already talk about the lifeguards? There's a,
Yeah, that was in other public safety, but you can put that on if you want.
yeah, I just, I think we need to consider a permit option here. I think we need to revisit possibly going back to the old beach pass, at least for the hours, to get, if we can make this not a profit thing, but at least come up with a permit system that where you at least cover the cost of the lifeguards.
Okay, I mean, that's
Talking about people paying to go to the beach.
No, only for the lifeguard service. So like when I moved here 23 years ago, we bought a summer beach pass and it helped pay for the lifeguards. And so like I pay to swim at the VHE, people pay to do rec programs. But when you get a lifeguard service, it's something that we pay for in Shorewood, and we do at the VHE pool and the older pool. And so I think it's something, I live in the area and I see a lot of the license plates are out-of-state license plates. And I just think it's time to consider at least making this, I don't want to make a profit off of Atwater Beach, but I think it's time to consider reintroducing the beach pass, the summer pass. You pay like 20 or 30 bucks and you get a pass for the summer. It's sort of like,
Kathy,
like I have a punch pass for the, I have a punch pass, I swim at the VHE, well, I did before COVID. And so I pay 20 bucks for 20 punches and I get a lifeguard and a nice locker room. And anyway, so that's what I think, because the beach costs are getting pretty high.
So if
And I
people
want it
didn't
to be
have a
safe,
beach
and I
pass,
definitely want to keep continuing to clean the beach, and I definitely want to continue to have the water tested and all that stuff. But I think to pay for the lifeguards, if we could have a permit system, just the seasonal beach pass that was here when it was here for decades, would be a way to help. I'll be honest, I see, a senior resource position right there.
Now, can I just ask, how did they, did you have to show your pass at the top in order to go through the gate to get in?
Yeah, you would yell your number as you ran through the gate. You'd say 429 and they'd, check the list. And, I'm sure that, in this day and age, you probably do wristbands or I don't know. But I just think that it's something we need to think about, because we're looking at some difficult choices here. And I think if I have to pay for a lifeguard at the VHE, and I don't mind, I am very grateful for that wonderful pool. And it's hard for them to find lifeguards. And I think that it's something we need to consider.
Okay, Trustee Ursink, did you have a comment?
so if you don't have a beach pass, you cannot go down to the beach. Is that the?
Well, it should be during the hours that we have lifeguards there, which is like 11 to 4.
Okay. Trustee Carpenter?
That was actually kind of my question. So outside of the hours that we have lifeguards there, it's open and anyone can go, and it's just to swim at your own risk?
Correct. And obviously you can game the system and you can show up at 10:45, and if, so I think that it's something we need to consider.
I mean, it might be nice if we did if you could get a pass for the summer to the pool and the beach, so you could go either place. Might be something to consider. Well, let's put that on the list. That's fine. Yes, Trustee Carpenter.
I know on the East Coast, in at least almost all the beaches in New Jersey require like a beach pass, and they have someone who I need to sort of noodle on the idea for Atwater Beach. I'm not sure what I think about it, but I know I have seen it done in other communities that have beaches, and I'm a little bit worried about the exclusionary factor of it, and what that is and what that looks like for Shorewood, that we have this like natural resource that we're not letting anybody else use. And I want to make sure that if we do sell them, that it is accessible to anybody, and that you don't have to be a resident to use it. But it is not a totally obscure concept. I know in New Jersey, again, as I was saying, there are beach passes, and there are people who go through and monitor them. It's like a little tag that you have on your bag, but if we could make Atwater maybe even more of a destination, and we're selling ice cream and we're selling things, maybe it makes more sense. I don't know. I need to just noodle on it. I think it can for sure go on the list. I think it's a good conversation.
Okay, Trustee
Trustee
Warren.
Menta?
I wanted to echo some of Trustee Carpenter's comments. I mean, I remember growing up here, we had it was a pay to use the beach system when I was in elementary school here. And I understand Trustee Stokebrand's concerns, but I would not support going back to that system. I think there's an exclusionary piece to it, especially in a time when we're trying to be more inclusionary. And I think it would set us apart from other beaches throughout the Metro Milwaukee area. So I just think that, from a standpoint of, looking like an inclusive, welcoming community, I think it's probably something that we don't want to pursue, and I would not support. I do understand the point about trying to make back the money for lifeguards, but I think this is a public resource, and I think it's something that we want to keep, open to the public for free.
Okay, I just would like to point out, we are the only beach in Milwaukee County that has lifeguards. So just as a point of information, nobody else is even offering lifeguards. Clody's not, South Shore, Bradford, we are the only beach, and I think that people value that, and because they know that they can send their families here, and from 11 to 4, this is a great, safe spot to be. And I think that's wonderful. I think that the plans, I was a member of the Friends of Atwater Beach when it reorganized, and the plan was to make it that nice, safe spot. And I just think that, for the taxpayers of Shorewood to continue to support that is great. But I think it's just like the VHE pool. I pay $60 for a 20 punch pass. I think non-residents pay something a little more. It's like every other rec program we have, even in the Senior Resource Center, you pay a certain amount as a Shorewood resident for the programming and the safety and the access. And people who aren't in the village pay a little bit more. And I'm not advocating that necessarily for the beach. I think it could be part of the discussion, but let's be clear. We are the only beach in the county that offers lifeguard service. No one else does it.
I mean, we do have, let's put it on the list. I know President Rosick and Trustee Bockhorst want us to comment on it. But let's move on. Okay, President Rosick, did you have a comment?
I do, just something to think about. If the pass is really hard for me because then you need a daily fee, kind of like the pool system pass, but I don't think we have the staff to do that. So the other option is meters, parking meters along the strip right in front of the beach. I mean, I'm just saying, I do agree with Trustee Stokebrand that it's not just the lifeguards that we're paying for at this beach. We are coming up to extremely expensive repairs to our beach. And it will continue because of the high waters and the erosion. We have a lot to do at that beach. And in order for us to keep it safe and beautiful for our village, we're gonna have to find a revenue stream. And so if it's not going to be a daily pass, maybe for anyone, and maybe one of the lifeguards collects it from everyone, like 50 cents. I mean, it could be something nominal, but everyone's the same. I could go for that, or maybe parking meters, just something to think about, but there has to be a revenue stream.
Good idea. That's a good idea. Trustee Bockhorst?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what Trustee Warren had said. And I understand that there are some revenue gaps here. I would be more inclined to say, let's look at the lifeguarding situation versus absolutely not becoming a gated community. I can understand that's a creative option, but going to a paid system, especially one that's punitive towards people who don't live here, really flies in the face of what Shorewood seems to represent. And, you know, we've passed, I forgot what it was, our diversity and inclusion and all of these other, you know, proclamations and things that we stand for in our Vision 2020 of being a welcoming, open community. And we talk about a host of things. We want to celebrate. Our beach is a gemstone. We are lucky to have that. And I understand with that beautiful amenity comes a lot of responsibility. But I know some of the members of this board are consistently looking for ways to cut taxes, but you also might want to ask people, residents in this village, if we were to go for a pay system, a pay-to-play system with our beach, I'd want this to at least go to referendum at the local level and get the pulse of everyone here, because I have a feeling that that it's not exactly what some of the trustees are thinking.
Okay, let's move on. Is there anything else on capital on page 110 that we want to? We did put both the beach trash receptacles and Atwater Park fixtures on. So, anything else on page 110 or?
I think
Yeah,
I put.
Trustee Warren.
Sorry, I think I put the River Club windows on as well.
Okay, River Club window. Sorry, absolutely. Okay, I think we put pretty much everything. You, Trustee Carpenter.
This, maybe this was already on, I think we talked about it, but on 109 at the bottom of 109, the Capitol Drive street marking.
I think, Mark, was that on the list?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I think we got practically everything on the list. Okay. Can we move back to trustee compensation? This was a memo that Mark provided that he provided to us last year when we had this conversation. We never seemed to manage to get this conversation. We always say, well, it's not, budget's not a good time to talk about it, but we never managed to get it in any other time. So it's not in the budget, correct? So
Correct.
Okay, so we would have to add it. Anybody have comments? President Rozak.
I'm actually the one that proposed it, and I want to just justify for a minute why. And you're absolutely correct, Trustee Menta. I've proposed this for, I don't know, every year that I've been on the board, and we never seem to get to it. Whether it's in budget, we defer it to after budget for the conversation, and after budget we never get to it until budget. So we have not had the Board of Trustees a vote on raising our salary or our stipend has not would not happen to any of us until the next election. So it's not going to happen immediately because you need one election cycle so that people can vote you out if that's, you know, the proper way to do it. That's what our ordinance says. The most important thing to me, though, is that everybody on staff, all of our employees have received cost of living increases to match inflation since 1971. And we have not. The Board of Trustees, 7 members, including the village president, have not received cost of living increase. And so at a minimum, you cannot say in 1971, a quarter, you know, bread was the same price as it is today. Inflation has gone up since 1971. And so just using the just adjusting for cost of living that everyone else has received is what I wanted to propose. And again, I'm not running again. I'm not going to benefit from this. Everybody on the board who would vote for this would have to wait an election cycle, I believe, and Mark can confirm that. I just do not believe it is fair that $1,500, I believe the president makes in a year, is the same as it was in 1971. It's the same amount of work, if not more, and just inflation alone. So I'm not asking for an increase, meaning raise the salary. I'm simply saying the 7 of us, a lot of people, to get younger, diverse people on our board to represent Shorewood who have children or, you know, need babysitters, we're not keeping up. And so we end up with years and years of people who have to be retired or independently wealthy, who can afford babysitters on their own, who don't have to work, you know, full time. So I just believe that the cost of living is very important for us to just bring it up since 1971 as every single other employee of the village has received.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Ursink?
Well, I'm not retired or independently wealthy, and I couldn't disagree with this more. I mean, this just seems so irresponsible for us to be sitting here talking about cutting police officers, charging people to go to our beaches, and here we're asking for more money. I mean, that's laughable. The community, I would do this for free. I don't even do this for the money. Like if you're in this for making money, you're in it for the wrong reasons. We got to be, we're fortunate enough to be governing our community here, and that should be compensation enough. So I understand people have issues with babysitters. People have different issues, but this is what we all signed up for. We didn't sign up for the $1,000. We didn't sign up for the $1,500. For me, I just put it in the bank and I'll donate it back to the community when it's all there and done. But there is no way that we're talking about cutting all of this from this budget. We're trying to cut all of this money from the budget, and here we're talking about giving raises to ourselves. That's laughable. That's a joke. It's irresponsible. And I couldn't be more against this concept.
Could I ask you to, you can state your opinion and, say you disagree. All the other laughable joke, blah, 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 brain dead, whatever. You didn't say that this time.
Trustee Menta?
You don't need to, make comments that are negative towards other people. That's all I'm asking.
Did I make a comment towards negative to other people?
Because you said, oh, it's laughable. It's this. It's it's a little
concept
bit.
of giving ourselves a raise while we're trying to cut all this money.
All I'm asking is for everyone to express their opinion.
I did.
Without impugning other people who may have a different.
I don't think he's doing that, Trustee.
I do, and I'm chairing right now.
Okay,
Trustee Carpenter. Trustee Carpenter has the floor. You had your time. Trustee Carpenter.
Oh, I haven't had my time yet.
I have to say.
I'm going to call on you, okay? Trustee
Oh, okay.
Carpenter, can you wait your turn? Is that something you can do?
Oh, can you
Maybe
save
we
your
need to get right to
personal
Trustee
attacks,
Bockhorst
Trustee Amenta?
because she's unable to wait her turn.
Oh, I'm unable.
Go ahead, Trustee Bockhorst. I'm sure Trustee Carpenter has patience and can wait a few minutes for you to go ahead.
Are you done berating and being pedantic with me?
Are you ready to make your comment?
You know what? I would love to I did not realize that Trustee Carpenter was in the queue, but I think you exactly did to me what you accused Trustee Ursink of doing to you. So I would ask for a little consistency from you. If you're going to berate some of our members, take a look at yourself, what you're doing here. It's not at all helping the process. Go ahead, Trustee Carpenter.
Okay, I called on you. It is your turn to make a comment.
I will reiterate then, I completely 100% agree with what Trustee Ursink said at this moment. The fact that we reconsidered the parking last month, probably for budgetary reasons. The fact that we make a lot of decisions on this board based on tax base, this and that, we're looking to charge people to go to our public beach, all of these things, and yet we're asking, and I'm going to call it a tone-deaf argument. I don't care who came up with it. I know many people have supported this, but it's really not the time or place for us to be calling for all of these cuts to services in our community during a pandemic and then saying, hey guys, let's give trustees a raise. Now, I also am not independently wealthy. I also am not retired, okay? And I've been serving on this board since 2013 when I was as young as our youngest member. So yes, we have a lot of people who will serve. And I also will say this, I will say that this board, if we give ourselves a raise at this point, I'm pretty sure we'll be the laughingstock more than we already are for being as dysfunctional as we are. So yes, I can't remember the words that Trustee Ursink used, but I agree with all of those. It's ridiculous for us to ask for this at this moment.
Okay, Trustee Carpenter.
I see both sides of this. On the one hand, I completely understand the challenges that we are facing financially as a community, but I think that we, regardless of what you think, Trustee Ursink, it is challenging, and it is even more challenging now in a pandemic to find people to run for this position and do everything that we do, knowing that they can't pay for a babysitter, or that they, or if they have a full-time job, that then they're going to be on a 5-hour meeting. I think for me, Trustee Ursink, hearing those comments, you have an amazing ability. You are in a very privileged place, and so am I, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. But I think that there are voices in our community who are not willing to serve because they can't afford to do this. They can't afford to take the time out. And that's amazing that you can put up whatever money you earn away and you can give it back to the community. And I commend you for that. But I think that, I wasn't even alive in
Point of
1976.
order is that you're talking to Trustee Ursink right now. I'm sorry, but we just were told
I was
the
not
rules.
alive in 1976. That was the last time that there was a cost of living increase. And I'm not looking for anything that is, any way to get rich from this. But, was it last year, 2 years ago, we increased to a $15 an hour minimum wage, but we don't pay our trustees that. So
Is
I
that
just
your
think-
dog crying? I hear like
Yes,
a dog
sorry.
crying. I'm like,
I really
everyone's
wanted to leave
muted
my
except for
office.
you.
Everyone's going to watch the Packers game, but anyway,
All right.
that's my thought.
And your
So-
dog is upset about it too. I
Yes.
guess.
So anyway,
Okay.
that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Warren.
I just weighing in my own opinion. I see both sides of this, but I mean, bottom line for me is that I wouldn't support a salary increase at this point in the middle of a pandemic and a really tight budget. I would not support an initiative to raise our salaries. And in a way, it's kind of a catch-22. Moving the needle on people who are able to run and able to serve would probably take a bigger salary adjustment. It would take a relatively large salary adjustment, but then again, we're also in a place where we're really constrained in terms of budget this year. So I think that at this point, I wouldn't, I would not support this at this point, given where we are and given that we're in the midst of a pandemic, though I do see the reason for bringing it up.
Yeah, Trustee Stoker-Brand, do you have a comment or?
No, I echo Trustee Carpenter's sentiments.
I know we talked at one point about a per diem. I think we should at least be paid for the amount of time we spend actually at meetings. And I find that this is between 5 and 10 hours a week doing this. And after coming to the end of my second term, it's a significant chunk of time. I work contract, and I definitely have fewer hours to work on contract jobs because of the amount of time I'm putting in here. And so I would support a per diem. I'm not sure I would support, so I would support, I don't know, 30, 50 bucks an hour for the time we are actually in meetings. I don't know the exact amount, but I do think, we're asking people for their time, and people's time is valuable. And so that's my position on it. But I guess, do we want to keep it on for the list to discuss further? I think we have a couple people on the fence and two people absolutely opposed. President Rozek, this is your issue. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to comment back that this year in our budget, there is a cost of living increase again every year for our employees. I don't know how, it is a significantly difficult year in a pandemic. I am one of those that wants under a 1% increase in our budget for taxes because of that reason of the pandemic, and people are suffering. But again, this is my 5th year just asking for the cost of inflation that we give to our employees every year. And again, it doesn't go into effect for my salary in any way because I'm not running for re-election. But I really think it's important for the next, for the next generation, for the current generation, for millennials, that for diversity reasons, why are we giving our employees cost of living increases and not treating other humans that are working just as hard in the village for the village the same?
So why don't we put it on the list for further
Trustee Amenta,
discussion on
Trustee
October
Amenta.
15th. Yes, Trustee Bachhorst.
Thank you. Since we get to go around twice, I will say that our employees in this village are incredibly valuable. They are trained, they are hired by professional staff, and they have none of us have to have any sort of qualifications in order to get elected, nor are we able to get fired without recall or other means, or not getting reelected. So equating us in our abilities to serve to that of our public employees, I don't see that correlation. Again, if you go through all of our credentials, they're all very different, but we are not hired by village staff, nor can we be fired by village staff. And yes, they deserve public employees, and our constituent base here in Shorewood, for the most part, agrees that public employees have been undervalued. They've been ripped apart under the Walker administration and under the Republicans in our legislature. So I understand. If you guys want to acquiesce and look at ways to increase the salary here without reducing services in this village, but I think, again, we'd be laughed at if we told people that we think our time that we should be paid $30 to $50. This board cannot sell this. I'm sorry. So thank you.
Okay, I would suggest we add it to the list, and if no one has objections, and we'll move on to, we did capital budget. We have, just so we know, we have debt service, utilities, TID budgets, and operational considerations, which I have no idea what that means. So let's move on to debt service. What page is that? Oh, I see it. Page 97.
And then Trustee Menta, I'm just going off of the budget review guide, reference guide, and I see library, trustee compensation, then DPW, TIDS, utilities, water, sewer, parking.
I'm going from the agenda for this meeting.
It's 10/5/20. Oh, what is this?
If I may, debt service should only take a minute because there's nothing you can change on this budget.
Right.
The item about providing additional general fund reserves for debt service is already on the list. So unless you see some other matter or topic of discussion, that's really all there is to this budget.
I don't have any comments on debt service. Does anybody else? Alrighty. Utilities.
Wait, excuse me, Trustee Menta, I'm sorry.
Yes, President Rozek, yes.
Just on debt service, I just, if anybody has questions, I know you sent out an email and we didn't respond because of open meeting laws, but we do talk about debt service in the long range financial plan. I think it's an important concept for the newer trustees to understand as the board is growing together. And so if we don't talk about it tonight to clarify what we were talking about at the last meeting in budget, I do feel it's very important that we do so in the next long range financial planning meeting at length, maybe even a session before we go into next year's long range financial plan.
Yeah, I think the point that I just added that one line to Mark's graph to show that, we're going to have to make in 2024 or 2025, somewhere in there, there's going to have to be a really big jump, so I mean, we're looking at like a, 6% tax increase, or I don't know exactly, but it's going to be a much larger tax increase, at the point we run out of that debt stabilization. So I think that was the point with Mark's original plan, was that we would be gradually increasing levy every year towards debt service. And we have two choices. If we're increasing debt service levy, but we want to keep our total levy flat, then we have to be cutting in operations, which is hard to do because cost to continue is going up every year. So if we're not, so basically, we kind of are in a collision course because the board has been, we want to have 1% or less. But if we're increasing debt service by 5%, then that means probably like closer to zero in the operating budget. So that, So I think we are going to have a question at the end of how much of our general fund reserves to use to keep us from having to levy more. But we do need to recognize the more we use reserves and don't increase the levy, you know, at some point we're going to have a really nasty budget. So,
or cut services. So I think the one part that was left out, and I apologize, but you nailed it. We're either going to have to increase taxes gradually, more and more,
right.
Or since 5 years ago, I've been saying we can gradually cut operations like every other community, rather than facing 6 years down the line doing no smaller cuts and having a drastic, like 6 to 10% tax increase or a major cut in operations. We've gone 5 years now without any real cuts in operations. We've wasted, in my opinion, we've wasted 5 years. I'm trying to assist in the understanding that we only have like 3 years left. So if we don't start this year in changing, and I think that's why on the agenda it says that maybe some operational changes, we're going to have to face that in 4 years or 2, 3, 4 years, huge cuts or major tax increases. So just keep that in mind every year. And for some reason, we lose that. We lose the long range picture when we're doing short-term budgeting.
Right. I mean, we haven't been doing either. We haven't been adequately increasing levy for debt service, and we haven't been cutting operations. We did have this pot of extra reserves, which I think we do need to spend. I mean, it's tax money that we collected that people paid for services, and we can't just build a nest egg and sit on it. I mean, up to 30%, yeah, but over that, we should spend it. So, but you know, again, then you get into like, should you spend one-time revenues on operations? No, you shouldn't. So we do have some questions. Does anybody else have comments on this? Trustee Carpenter? Okay. All right, debt service, utilities. First one is parking utility. One question I had on this one is, should we continue to deal with the private lots? I'm not sure. I mean, I guess we do make a little bit of money from them, but especially if we're changing the entire parking situation and more people can buy, have an opportunity to buy a permit to park on the street. And I don't know if it just seems like I'm not sure they're worth the effort, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, I have a comment.
Yeah.
I absolutely think we should not. If we're going to start allowing on-street parking, the reason that this is a lot of work. Granted, I don't think, and Leanne can confirm for us, but I don't think we snowplow any more of the lots, private lots. However, we do get in the middle of a lot of complaints that the trustees are aware of, that we get CC'd on the board. You know, between the private lot owner and it's not being plowed fast enough. And it's just, the reason we did it was because we didn't allow it on street. If we have the on-street parking, it plenty replaces the private lots. We still have the lots that have waiting lists, which are our own lots that are 24 hours. Those are the ones that are in demand. Those are the ones with waiting lists. Those are the ones we keep. We own them. But the private lots, you got to be in by after 8 o'clock at night and out by 7 a.m. And there's so many vacancies. It's really, to me, and maybe the administration wants to talk about it, but it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of counting. It's a lot of just something we don't need to do if we allow it on our own public streets.
I agree. I think it would simplify their workload. And I don't know, I mean, I think we get in more than we pay for them. So, I mean, budget-wise, they are a positive. However, it's a workload that we're trying to reduce for the clerk's office. Anybody else? Trustee
and
Ursink?
I did have a question.
Trustee Ursink?
Just curious what staff thinks about the private lots and what their recommendation would be.
I'm not sure if anyone else has a comment on private lots, but if you do make changes that allow for a permit.
Can everybody mute? President Rozak, I think you need to mute. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Rebecca.
I think if we do change our policy and allow for on-street permits, I don't the question of needing the private lots, it's not justified anymore, because you have provided alternative option other than restricting where parking would occur in different areas of the village. So if another staff member disagrees with that approach, please weigh in now. But I think that in general, we're supportive of eliminating that should you switch to a different parking permit.
Okay, any other comments?
Thank you.
Trustee Menta, may I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I think one of the underpinnings is that if we do implement a new structure that accommodates on-street overnight parking, that we did have a plan look back 6 months after the beginning of that process. One of the key issues is evaluating this very topic, as well as a couple other areas of concern. So I would agree with your general comments. I would just advocate kind of maintaining our existing relationships and see where the demand goes before we just transition out at a predetermined time. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead, President Rosa.
You had mentioned we make money. I think some of the biggest ones that we're making money off of, we still will, which is because they're public. And that's like even the parking structures at Metro Market and the new parking structure at Lighthorse, we still would have those public spaces and permits to rent out. So we're just talking about like PCF Bank, Ogden Lot. I mean, and if you, Mark, maybe you can provide, because I'd like to put this on the list, but maybe if we can just show the trustees the vacant, like the actual parked up rate of these smaller private lots, like the vacancy rate, that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, we only have a half hour, and I did want to take a couple minutes at the end to talk about what we all should be doing as homework before we come back on the 15th. So let's see. I'm thinking, unless somebody has something specific on utilities or TIFs, we should get to the operational considerations because the staff did take the time to put that together for us. Are there any objections? Trustee Carpenter?
I just had one question, and I know we're going to talk about it later in the meeting, but the unbudgeted or unplanned for a project, I think it's 4480 Lake Drive. Is that, like, did we add that to the cap? What ended up happening with that?
So if the board chooses to take action and approve that project, the final budget will represent that, and then we will move ahead to issue bonds for it. That'll be in the sewer budget.
Okay, and so I don't know if maybe we can add that. I know it's not, I mean, it's agenda-sized for the meeting, but I don't know if it should be, or if we're going to decide then at the meeting that that should be on the list, but I'm just wondering if we should.
Well, Mark, you would do that as a staff update, right? If we decide to go ahead with it.
Right, if the board takes action tonight, that would be a staff update.
Okay.
I have a question about utilities.
Yes, go ahead.
Wait, sorry, sorry, really quick, President Rosa.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Carpenter and then President Rosa.
Just to clarify, so it will be a staff update on the 15th at budget wrap up?
If the item's up for consideration at the board tonight.
Right.
So if the board approves that action, we will reflect the anticipated project to whatever extent is applicable to 2021, because we're going to be starting this year yet. And then we'll also bring forth some bonding resolutions to secure funding for that project in the next few weeks.
Okay, President Rozek, you have a question?
I do. So utilities every year are doubling. One year sewer rates are going up by 10%. The next year water rates are going up by 10%, or I don't know, they go back and forth, between 10 and 15%, but each year we're raising utility rates. And I think it's because we're switching more and more into our utility and bonding through revenue bonds. Is that correct? We're trying to bond through revenue bonds rather than the general bonds that are cheaper, a little bit cheaper interest rates.
Generally, I would say that is not the underlying reason for trying to manage the rate increases on alternate years. The thing that we try to avoid is raise both in any single year.
But the reason they're increasing, the reason that there are increases, I know why we alternate years, but the reason in general that every other year sewer is going up by 10 to 15%, the rate, we're building up, I can't remember if it's water or sewer, but just for the newer trustees, in order to utilize utility bonds, we need to build up a certain reserve. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
I thought for
the
water utility, I remember you telling us we needed to have a reserve.
You told us that. Water mains are breaking and we can't replace them using utility bonds because the water reserve isn't high enough. Our cash reserve in the water utility isn't high enough.
Well, I'm sorry, maybe I'm misunderstanding the terminology. The critical issue is debt coverage. And that means that we've got utility rates that support issuing new debt at a multiplier of the amount of debt that we're issuing. And we've worked diligently within the sewer utility to be able to achieve that goal with the extremely large southeastern sewer project coming. The challenge is in the water utility is that's a regulated rates, and we just don't have enough infrastructure value to be able to accomplish that in the near future.
Which
so
means
I
we need more cash. Right, but that's still confusing, Mark. In general, it means we need then more cash reserves, and for us to bond through water mains through the utility. Is that correct? Because we don't have infrastructure value enough, you have to build up your cash reserves.
Well, I'm sorry to respond indirectly, but whatever method we choose to bond to pay for utility improvements, being general obligation or revenue bonds, the sewer or water utility both pay for those costs. So they'll pay for those costs either way. Now, again, revenue bonds are ever so modestly a little higher rate, but I don't believe that's a driving factor between rate increases.
I understand that, but why are we in the water utility? Can we bond for our water mains through the water utility today?
No.
Why?
I believe I've covered that topic already.
I don't believe that it's clear. It's because we need to build up our cash reserves because the value of the infrastructure isn't high enough. And that is why the rates are increasing, is so that we can bond for our water mains through the utility.
Well, what is your what is your point that you're trying to make?
Can we move on?
For the public to understand why their water rates are going up every other year by 10 to 15%. Why?
I think because we have infrastructure needs, and he mentioned debt coverage ratio, so we need to have enough coming in to give an adequate debt coverage ratio for us to issue bonds. I mean, I'm not sure if it's just if a reserve. I mean, I remember a reserve being discussed, but it seems tonight he's talking about just having an adequate cash flow to give you a debt coverage ratio that would allow you to issue bonds. But I guess, yeah, I don't want to get hung up on this because we do have other things, but maybe you can take
If it would be helpful, I do have a long-term history on utility rate increases that I'd be happy to share with the group at the next meeting as well, though.
Okay.
I understand the concept of your point, for sure.
Okay. Any other questions on utilities or? Okay, I had one on TID 3. It was developer subsidies of $500,000. Is that like returning the tax? Like they have to pay taxes to cover the debt service, and anything over that we return back to them? Is that what that is?
Part of the developer's agreement on that project is that they self-financed the project as a portion of their developer incentive, with the understanding that the taxes that they pay, the TID incremental value, would then go towards paying off that debt. And that's how that portion of those projects in that district were funded.
And is that a tax rebate? I thought tax rebates weren't allowed.
I've never heard this item classified as a tax rebate. It's subject to appropriations, so I think that's the technical reason why it's not.
Okay, are there any other questions on the TIDs, or should we move on to? Okay. So now we're back into the packet. What page of the packet are we on? Does anybody know? Okay, it looks like page 13. Okay. So we've been presented with 4 vacant positions. Does anybody want to put these on the list?
I'll put on the list, Trustee Amenta, please.
Yes.
I have a question. Going back to something that I think Mr. Manuelson sent out in July, it was options for budgetary savings possibly. I'm just wondering, the number 3 on that, I think it's in the budget, it's in the packet today on page 27. Number 3 was a possibility of an increased staff contributions for health insurance by 20%, from 10% to 12%. Estimated impact is $15,000 a year. When was the last, how would that possible health insurance increase if we keep the COLA and we keep the merit raises? If we looked at the health insurance, what historically in the last, say, 5 years, have health insurance costs been stable, or what would this, going from 10 to 12%, how big of an ask is that?
And can you just, Tyler, can you explain about the merit discussion and why it used to be 12% and we lowered it to 10% based on wellness program?
Okay, go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I can talk about that. Yeah, so since I've been here, our premiums have been fairly level, which is really good news. I don't think a lot of municipalities can say that, or organizations in general. When you get your insurance premiums, the number one driver in that is your loss claim ratio. Typically, health insurance companies want that ratio to be around 80%. It demonstrates that they're making money off of you. And anything that's near 100% or greater, they're losing money off of you. So there's been some organizations, when they have a loss claim ratio, especially above 100%, it's really driving up their premiums. Fortunately for us, our loss claim ratios have been 60 to 80%. So that gives me a great argument when I work with the insurance broker and getting our renewals, that we shouldn't be getting an increase because they're making money off of us. So that's why we've been able to hold consistently our insurance premiums currently. Now for wellness, what we ended up doing a few years ago is doing a wellness program. So now we have 2 health insurance plans, a co-pay plan and a high deductible. But for the sake of this discussion, we'll just talk about the co-pay plan, because that's been our standard plan for a number of years. So for the co-pay plan, about 3-4 years ago, we created a wellness program that basically what it did was it took the 12% contribution level, which employees were at, and it separated it to 10 and 15%, meaning if you did not do wellness, you were at the 15% level, and if you did wellness, you were at the 10% level. So we've had that consistently. The union has decided not to participate, so this is only an offering for our non-union employees.
And so how many people is that?
It's about 40, 45. I know Rebecca had that. If you want to look back in a week or two ago, she had that in her Friday update, the exact numbers. This year we had the 75% participation in the program. But when we did that, we were projecting it to be 66 as a cost even. So,
Right.
so basically what we were saying is if we were at 66%, the people that were not doing it are basically subsidizing the program for those that are participating. What we ended up seeing when we did the program is we had 2 employees drop off the insurance entirely. So when the board has asked for participation on the program, I've included those savings because if we got rid of the wellness program, there's risk that the employees go back on the health insurance because the only reason why they jumped off the health insurance was because they did not want to participate in wellness, nor did they want to pay the 15%. We can always go back to the 12%. The only thing that I would let the board know is we had a number of employees participate in the program this year, anticipating insurance premiums to be at 10% if they participated. In addition, the other reminder I would like to offer, or just a reminder to you all, is that we included an intermediate step because of COVID this year. And the intermediate step was established at 12%. So if you end up pushing the 10% back to 12%, I would also need guidance on what to do with the intermediate step, which right now is currently at 12%.
Can I just interject?
President Rosa.
We have this discussion every year, and I just wanted, there is another option. Originally, so what Tyler is saying is if more than 60% of our employees participate in the wellness program because of the percentage differences, because we lower the percentage, we actually lose money. We actually spend more money. So it makes our employees a little healthier. That's good. But again, if we're just looking monetarily, my suggestion from day one was, why did we ever lower it to 10%? Why didn't we keep it at 12% and say, if you don't participate in the wellness program, your premium goes to 15%. If you do, you keep your 12%. I've never heard of a government in the last 5 years that lowered the premium rate for, I mean, usually, okay, you want to keep your premium at this low, which is very low, 12% participation monetarily from the private sector, then you need to participate in the wellness program. They need to be taking responsibility for their health as well, our employees, just as I do on a private insurance plan. So I would suggest, and maybe put on the list, that we go back to the straight 12% is your premium payment, and if you participate in the wellness program, and if you don't, you go to 15%.
Okay, let's add that to the list. I think that's absolutely fine. We had other things operational. Trustee Carpenter.
I just had a question, Tyler, about participating in the health insurance plan. So there are people who, there are employees who do not take Village health insurance because they did not want to participate in the wellness scorecard. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so where do they get their health insurance from? From a spouse, or?
They go on their spouse's plan.
So I'm just thinking and wondering, because I know other places, if your spouse has a health insurance option, is there like any sort of incentive for those employees? Like other places, there's an incentive to basically not be on our.
Yeah, we have a $250 per month opt out. Okay. So for those employees that opted out, they ended up getting a $250 incentive to go on their spouse's plan.
Got it.
That's pretty nice incentive. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I wanted to talk about the mechanic position. I'd like to put that on the list because I feel like I would like to know what it would cost to contract out that function. So I guess maybe, I guess even if we got some estimates and it was less, we would still need money in the budget to do it. So I guess we would have to keep it in the budget, but I guess I'm suggesting we don't fill it and we look at some options for either consolidating service with Glendale or Whitefish Bay or someplace might be able to do it for us, or contracting out. And then if we can get something that would be savings, then we can do that, or maybe we'll find out it's more expensive, so we could fill the position then. So I'd like to throw that out there as a possibility.
I totally agree, and I think we talked about it before that we already are contracting more and more out because of the electronic systems of our mechanics. So it keeps going up, the percentage that we contract out. So we may find that there's a significant savings for the amount of work if we just contract it out, as we did for the inspector.
And I think it also might, if we end up contracting that out, it may create some space in the yard that would give us some opportunities for reconfiguring that space, and that might be helpful to us there.
Trustee Amenta?
Yeah, Trustee Stokebrand.
I would just like to say that at some point, I would hope that with the Conservation Committee and the DPW and possibly the police, if we could look at somehow getting to a possible plan to going to electric vehicles for, I mean, obviously for the heavy duty equipment that's specialized, you can't, but the squad cars, it just seems like we should, I hope there's electric hookups in the new police department. They should all be driving a used Tesla 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point, but
Tesla 3s are new this year, though. There's no used 3s. I know, because I've been looking at one.
By the time we get one, they'll be.
That's true. Trustee Ursink.
Just in my, I had a chance to sit down with Leanne and get a tour of the DPW yard, and there's just so much that needs to happen with that yard. It's in such, it's so outdated, and they are really just kind of scraping by. So to talk about getting all electric vehicles for DPW, I think there's just so many more needs there, even though that's like my big dream. But like, honestly, they have a big space that they fit like 30 big utility vehicles in, and if they need one in the middle, they have to drag all the vehicles out, get that one vehicle, and then put everything back in. So it's the actual yard is kind of so outdated that needs to be looked at. That needs to be like a fairly high priority in my mind. But in speaking to Leanne, the mechanic position is absolutely the top of our list. It's a very critical thing for them at DPW, and from my understanding, that the contracting is not a feasible option for them. They really need a mechanic in-house for to take care of all of these vehicles that we have. And the reason one of our mechanics left is because they have to do the work outside in the middle of winter on the vehicles. There's no space to do the indoor maintenance on these vehicles. So if something needs to be fixed, they actually have to go out in the middle of winter and work underneath the vehicles in the middle of winter. So there's a lot of work that we need to do with DPW coming up here in the near future, unless we want to lose all the employees.
Okay, I did also, I had a question about the police officer. In the memo, there's discussion on page 1 about a school resource officer. And I wasn't clear from the way this was written why this position is not an SRO. What is the relationship between the SRO and this vacancy in the police department?
So I can comment on that. Right now, our vacancy in the police department is the deputy chief position. So I wanted to identify that. We've had a resignation there, and Lieutenant Liebenthal has recently and temporarily been filling in for that role. I wanted to point out that 3 years ago, the village had an officer operating the capacity of a school resource officer. And the duties for addressing school-related matters had been transferred to various individuals in the department to allow an officer to float in covered shifts due to vacancies. This was brought up because should the village want to ever go back to maintaining a dedicated SRO, that it would be my recommendation that be funded fully or jointly by the school district. with clear expectations of performance.
So,
Trustee
At this-
so hold on. So what is the connection between the vacancy and the SRO would be another position on top of filling this vacancy?
We have not been operating with that position. I guess the point was, and when it came to, when we met with Alexander Weiss last week to talk about structural changes and organizational changes in the department, I was hoping that we would be able to glean some recommendations from him at this point in terms of how to structure the department, recognizing that we had some deficiencies in some areas before the department had resources for.
I mean, when this has come up before, people at the school react in horror that we would provide an SRO because they, there's, kids it's oppressive and blah, 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 and would be, yeah. So, I mean, I don't think there's any interest, I may be wrong, but I don't think there's any interest on the part of the school board of having a dedicated SRO. And, yeah, that's the feedback I've been getting. President Rosick, and we have like 1 minute because I want to talk about the spreadsheet.
Well, you brought it up. Okay.
I know, but we
thank
have
you.
1 minute.
Okay. I just wanted to convey that I brought this up in a roundtable at the League of Municipalities Executive workshop, and the consensus 98% of the communities was either you pay for an SRO or the crossing guards, participate in 50% of the crossing guards. There was not, 98% of them did either or. And I just wanted to pass that information along because we've had this discussion before in budget. I did get the feedback, and there are less than 2% of the communities around the state that actually do both, 50% of the crossing guards and an SR and a school resource officer. So if we decide,
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. So just to finish up with the police officer, does anyone want to put that vacancy on the list, or are we good with it, funding it? Okay, seems like we're good. Okay, so if you go to the summary of 2021 budget workshops updates, so you see in green on every page, sent to finance, meaning Mark, by 8 a.m. Monday, October 12th, which is next Monday. I believe, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, the first is staff. That's, do not pay attention to that. That is what staff is doing. That's the changes they're doing. And then I think this is basically the list. Everything, well, you're going to have to modify this, Mark, right? And send it back out.
I'll make a couple of updates based on the conversation today.
Okay, so everything we've talked about on the list is on here. Are you going to send it out as Excel so we can do it online, or are you just going to put it on as a PDF?
No, my objective is to send this out in Excel to every trustee tomorrow morning.
Great. Okay.
I'll have printed copies at the library for those who maybe like to work off of paper, and then I'll also have some generic and kind of instructions that go with that.
So I just want to make sure, so people would enter, if we want to make a change, we would enter it in the yellow highlighted column.
Well, the ratings go in the blue column, and if you want to see the impact of the various changes, you can certainly make your own adjustments to the yellow column to see how that all rolls down to the bottom.
Okay, so for example, if you're okay with, okay, well, like the 18,300 for express voting machines is already taken off. But if you want to, if you're okay with not doing masonry tuck pointing, would you put positive, I don't know, you'd put in the yellow column, amount in revised budget would be 0.
And you give it like a number 5, right?
That's on the second page, yeah.
Yeah, so there's 2 things you can do. One, in the rating, we did this last year where everybody gave something of how important it was to them, 1 to 5. So we were able to, like, ones that like it generally averaged out to 4 or 5, we were able to say, okay, nobody really values this much. And it was made a very simple and quick work to cut them out. Okay. So everyone should go through and do those ratings. And Mark mentioned to me that some trustees never did get it in. And I'm feeling like we're going to go ahead. If only 5 of us get it in or 3 of us get it in, we'll go ahead. I mean, we're not going to automatically do it, but I encourage everyone to get it in, their ratings, okay? And then if you want to use this kind of as your own worksheet to figure out where you want to get to for whatever levy increase you're okay, you can sort of use the numbers on here to figure out, how you would get to the end goal that you want to get to, okay? Are there any questions about this?
I have one question, Trustee Amenta, please.
Yes,
Just
sure.
as a point of information, I apologize if you went through this already. Village manager review of funding of contracted writing, $6,000. Can someone just tell me what that is? It's not Shorewood Today, right?
It is Shorewood Today. It's our writers. We pay our writer $6,000 to produce the 4 articles or whatever goes into each issue of Shorewood Today. So Shorewood Today is actually 10,000. What?
In addition to the 4,000?
Yeah, it's actually 10,000. Yeah, for Shorewood Today. Okay, so I just encourage everyone to get the ratings in and get them to Mark by Monday. End of day Monday is okay, Mark?
Actually, Monday morning is strongly preferred, as we have to prep this up then to recirculate it for the Thursday meeting. So I'd like to get that to you as soon as possible.
Okay.
And thanks so much for their time.
Okay. All right. Well, it's 7:32. We're 2 minutes over. Yes.
Trustee Menta, before
Yeah.
that we close, I do not have an internet connection for the laptop here. I'm traveling. And so I know that people, trustees have requested I not share the meeting if I am on my phone. So I will leave it up to the board if they would like the second public safety chair. So Kathy, Trustee Stokebrand can chair the meeting if that's the will of the board.
I'm okay with that. It looks like Trustee Ursink is okay with that. I think that looks fine. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And move to adjourn finance.
Second.
Move to adjourn Trustee Warren, Trustee Bacher. Can we take like a 2-minute break? Okay. Bye. Thanks, everyone.